Everybody, this is just a quick video showing you who's going at each position in these rookie mock drafts. If you think you know who's going to go at this position, leave a comment down below. Who do you think it's going to be? And see if any of my guests who've been on agree with you. And before we get into it, hey, hit that like, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. We're on a march towards, 500 subscribers. I'd love to be able to do it before we get into this season of football. That'd be awesome. So help me out and let's go. Let's see who's going 11 and who's going to wrap up the first round then right after Dalton Kincaid.
This was really easy. It is Superflex, so it is Will Levis. So I think, you know, he's not the standout QB in this draft and everything like that. I know there was a lot of talk that he was going to get that first round draft capital. He didn't get that. I think he's got a really good landing spot. I don't think he's going to play for 12 months. I think Ryan Tannehill will maintain that job. I know good friend Tom Strachan was putting out there saying about how he thinks Will Levis will be in at week 8. Is it week 8? Because the Titans have got an absolutely insane schedule to start with, and you know, if you look at it, you could honestly see them losing a lot of them games. And I think it's an absolutely amazing call that he could be in by week 8. But I think you've got a future starting QB there. You have got a future starting QB, and in Superflex that is king. QBs are king in Superflex, aren't they? You know, if you hold all the QBs and all the cards, you're the man with all the power. And that's what you want, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you got, what, a 50-50 chance? Like, doesn't matter. Like, these quarterbacks, you don't know until you see them play. Like, they can surprise you, like, who's going to hit, who isn't going to hit. Even after you see them play, it's like, oh, like, these guys come on really, really far, and some people fall off a cliff. Like, it's so hard to tell. So I think it's definitely worth taking a gamble. If you've got 112 and you won the league last year, if you can add an extra quarterback to your team, amazing. Like, that's great for your future.
You could be sat there in 12 months' time with 6 starting QBs. Yeah. And the people at 101, 102, maybe even not so much them, because you probably wouldn't be able to trade for them picks because the QB classes, you know, but somebody at the 105 may be really short of a QB. You know, if you were 105 now and you really needed a QB and them QBs went 1, 2, and 3, 2, 3, and 4, you then going, shit, I really need a QB. Anyone selling a veteran QB? Now you're sat here going, oh, I've got 6 of the starters. Which one do you want? You know, I'll take him for a first round pick. Then you flipped it, and now all of a sudden you've got a team that can compete, and you've got an extra first round pick the year after to maintain that dominance. And you know what I mean? That's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Flip these guys for a profit. And that's the end of round 1. We're going to hit up the last pick then of the first round with 112. So who's rounding out the first round for you?
And it's Quentin Johnson. And I think there's a lot of negatives been talked about him and his ability to handle that he doesn't look like, for someone who was, you know, originally in the process, people think he was like 6'4". He wasn't quite the size that people thought he was. And then he doesn't necessarily play to that size all the time. And then some people complain about, oh, he doesn't have the extensive route tree. And look, I hear all the negatives, and I know, to be honest, his production isn't the sexiest in the world, but there's a lot of positives. I think, you know, negatives can often stick out more than positives. That being said, he still did have some decent production at TCU. And this is one of those things where you say, if he does develop certain things where if he does extend the route tree and he does work on a little bit more, being more aggressive at the catch point and not body catching as much, that you can see some develop. And the thing is too, that we haven't even talked about, is the one he lands with a quarterback in Justin Herbert. That's very exciting. And then you're getting some older players there, and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. And there's one of those things where there's a lot of ways to point this as something to be excited about. And guess what? Touchdowns really matter. And someone with that size and where it seems like there's been a lot of smaller wide receivers to come out that have hit over the last couple seasons. It's kind of nice to see someone with a little bit different type of playing style. And I think that at 112, he's a lot more. I love taking at 112 than where he was back in February and January, and people were talking about it as the 106, 107. I think the 112 is much more palatable now because of his landing spot, attached to Justin Herbert and getting the draft capital. You might not get Quentin Johnson at 112, and that's how the cookie crumbles here. But I think there are going to be some spots where people who still have some question marks with Quentin Johnson, and I think that's this point where I want to take the risk on Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, I think that is about right for him. Obviously being paired up with Justin Herbert is amazing. I still have a few question marks about how well coached that Chargers team is. I wonder if they're the actual team that will bring him on and develop him. He's got a lot of gaps there, but I think they have a new offensive coordinator this year. Hopefully can plug in some gaps and try and fix some of the flaws that he's got. But talent is there. But yeah, you gotta hope that he develops. But at 112, that's usually what you're picking at 112 anyway, isn't it? A guy that's got some pretty obvious flaws, but you're like, let's see what happens here.
And what happens a lot of times is that's when people who are good at risk management, who are in their fantasy leagues, who have done very well in 110, 111, 112. They were in the playoffs. They were in that hunt for that trophy. They make a lot of smart moves, and then they have players fall into their lap because they have some question marks, but then the upside is still there, and they take that as a little depth piece. And then if it hits, boom. But then, you still say if he doesn't hit and you want to trade him, and you still got that, well, he's still a first-round player. He's still attached to Justin Herbert. He's still going to have some value where you can recoup a second-round pick maybe in the future, those kind of things. So that's some risk management there. There's a lot of reasons why the rich sometimes get richer.
So who's your final pick then of the first round at pick 112?
Yeah, so with it being Superflex, I feel like I've got to take a quarterback here because despite the slide in the NFL draft, I think Will Levis should still be a first-round pick in your rookie drafts, but at a late first, I feel like it's cheap enough for me to take a chance and see what we've got in Will Levis. I mean, obviously, he slipped a lot further than what people thought. People thought he could slip in the NFL draft to be after the top 10 picks overall in the NFL draft, but the fact that he slipped right down to day 2 was a real shock. But obviously I am concerned, but I feel like the fact that the Titans were willing to move up, they moved up 8 spots to go and grab a Will Levis. I feel like the Malik Willis experiment is over now. I feel like they don't see that developing, but getting a Will Levis who's been pretty solid in college, shown flashes that he can be a good NFL a good starting quarterback in the NFL. I feel like the Titans wanted to go and get somebody to potentially be that replacement for Ryan Tannehill. And I mean, this Titans offense wasn't great last year. So, I mean, we could be talking about Will Levis seeing an opportunity maybe earlier than what we'd expect. If he can put up a real battle in training camp and preseason before the NFL draft, it wouldn't shock me at all if maybe they just take a chance and see what they've got in Will Levis straight away. So the fact you're getting a potential starting quarterback at the back end of the first round, while I've never been in on Will Levis. I've never been a Will Levis guy. I've always been pretty low on him, but I feel like this is a point at rookie drafts in Superflex leagues where you've got to take that shot and see what you've got in a quarterback who could potentially be a starter within the next year. So, yeah, I'm happy to grab him at the back end of the first.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there as well. There is definitely a chance that Will Levis is, the starter week 1. I don't think the Titans believe in Ryan Tannehill being there long term. They've tried to replace him, twice now in the last 2 years. So yeah, if Will Levis shows up at training camp, then yeah, there's a chance that he could be the starter week 1. And even if he's not, I can't see him sitting. I just can't see him sitting the whole year. I think he will play as the starter this year and will take over before the end of the year. So yeah, I think I pick 112. Really, really good value there. Who's finishing off the first round at 112?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a guy that is consistently falling to the early to mid part of the second round. I'll go for Zach Charbonnet, the running back that Pete Carroll, he's doing my head. And I think the head coach that we've hated the most the last 2 or 3 years has been Kyle Shanahan from the 49ers, just because of his usage with all the players that he's got there. I think we need to change it to Pete Carroll and hate on Pete Carroll just because of what he's done with JSN and with Charbonnet, 2 guys that I was really high on.
I know.
I still think that the usage for Charbonnet is going to be there. Obviously, Kenneth Walker is a guy that caught 35 passes last year. that's obviously going to decrease for Walker. I think Charbonnet at the very worst is going to be the third down back. He's got plenty of juice. For me, he was easily my running back 3 in a tier of his own before the draft.
Yeah.
I just moved Achane up with him post-draft. But I still think the ceiling is there for Charbonnet. I think a lot of people are just expecting Kenneth Walker just to carry on his workhorse role. And Kenneth Walker is a better running back than Zach Charbonnet, definitely. But I think Charbonnet is still going to have a role. And then if Kenneth Walker ever does miss time, because running backs always miss time, then Zach Charbonnet is going to be so important for fantasy. And his ceiling is going to be so high. So I'm still taking him here just because of the talent. I'm going to bank on the talent. The draft capital was fine. Obviously, landing spot could have been better. But at this position where you're not going to feel great about any of these picks, I'll just go for Zach Charbonnet because of the ceiling could be there, especially if Walker misses any time.
Yeah, I think what happened last year kind of scared them, right? Whenever, Penny got injured, and then Walker became the workhorse, and then Walker got injured as well. Like I'm wondering if this pick is Pete Kyle going, well, maybe committee is really the way forward. And, I don't expect it to be 50-50. I expected we were like 60-40. But, even 40% on the Seahawks is like a 70% on other teams. So I think Charbonnet is a really good pick there at 112. And one of my favorite ones as well, because it's like, look at the value before the draft. What kind of player you're getting? You're getting a really good player there. So often the time, the good players do rise to the top, even above bad landing spots. So I think Charbonnet is a really good pick there at 112. Let's go Zay Flowers at the 112. I think that's a pretty fair place for him. I don't think we'll see the best of Zay Flowers until maybe next 2 seasons, I would say. I think Odell Beckham Jr. coming in, he'll take a lot of the target share. Mark Andrews is obviously there. That's going to be, Jackson's #1 target. Rashad Bateman, when Rashad Bateman is fit and healthy, that guy is so good. I'm such a huge Rashad Bateman fan, but it's, is he going to be the same after another injury? Is he going to stay healthy? Hard to trust at this stage. So Zay Flowers might not fully get a role until next year, but you got to be aware of that. Don't panic if Zay Flowers is coming out and getting only peppered with a couple of targets a game. There'll be games when he scores 0 points for your fantasy team. Absolutely. Zay Flowers is a great taxi squad guy, I think. Leave him on there, forget about him, and then whenever he's starting to come along, take him off that taxi squad ready for not next year, but for 2024. That's where I see Zay Flowers at the minute.
Yeah, I like that. I like that take. I thought a bit different on my show, but I'll probably look at him a bit different now. I love where you've taken that. So that's the end of round 1. I think, to be honest, if looking back at round 1, I think that's quite a chalky round. I know we all said, like you said, we all say that the draft is the same till round 6. I think you've got the same players that I'd expect to go in round 1, a different order. Yeah. But I think the first 12 players off the board are quite set in stone on who they're going to be. So let's get into round 2 and see what sort of rabbit holes you can take us down now. Where are we going at the 201?
Yeah, so round 1, I'm noticing that as well. It is kind of the same 12 guys quite a lot. I'm trying to scroll through here and see if anybody else kind of sneaks into that first round. Not a lot of them, really. I mean, you might see someone like a Mingo sneak in there at some stage, but really not a lot of these guys are sneaking into that first round. And